What's up, everyone, and welcome into your Celtics source, home of your 2025 NBA champion, Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder, they get the win that everyone had predicted, that the odds makers had, had them as a massive favorite, and yet this series went 7 games, and if not for a Tyrese Haliburton torn Achilles, which was the conclusion coming out of this game, um, we could be looking at one of the greatest upsets in NBA history. But OKC does get the job done. They get it done in the second half on their defense, on points off of turnovers. Shai was just fantastic in this game, showing why he's the MVP, the scoring title champion, and the finals MVP all in one season. One of the best regular seasons you can have. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to talk about Kevin Durant and the trade that took place earlier this morning, later on in the second half of the show. But, I want to start with just giving Indiana credit, right? They get off to a rough start to start the season, right? A losing record through halfway through the season, through January, really. And then they just turn it on. I think they had the second best record since January 1st in the league. They, behind only OKC, their defense, right? Last year we saw this team, such a high-powered offense, but their defense wasn't really there. And then, this season, their defense just took a whole new level. The defense that they were playing on SGA, specifically Nesmith, who fouled out in 4 of the 5 games, but it wasn't because of lack of effort. He used all his fouls smartly, with SGA just drawing some ridiculous calls that he's gotten all season. But, Nembhard, Haliburton, even in the earlier games, just some fantastic team defense from the Pacers. And, I was going to expect them to be back, but now with Haliburton, he's probably going to get the same type of surgery as Jason Tatum did. So he's going to be out for a couple months as well. So we'll see what comes out tonight. I'm sure he's going to get an MRI and surgery probably tomorrow morning, probably in Oklahoma. So he'll be on his rehab, and now you have 2 star players down in this league, which is not great, right? Both in the Eastern Conference. This Eastern Conference is going to be extremely weak next year. So we'll see what comes out of that. We also have the draft coming up at the end of this week. So, we'll do a couple videos on who the Celtics draft, and obviously Cooper Flag's going to go number 1. We'll probably do a video on that as well later on after the draft happens. But back to this game. I want to start by talking about SGA, because SGA, he deservingly so wins the Finals MVP, and he closes them out in a remarkable game, right? He has, looking at the, obviously he was brilliant with his playmaking, right? 12 assists. I think that's a playoff high for him this season. Right, just 1 turnover with 29 points, 5 rebounds as well. 2 blocks, a steal. He was just, the Pacers, they did a great job in the first half of containing him, but eventually, with help of great defense around him, he is able to get out in transition and take advantage of the high fouls on Nesmith and Nembhard, and he just pulls away single-handedly, I would say, He starts to knock down a couple threes, which all of the Thunder really knocked out threes. That's really how this league grew. And yes, the Pacers, I love how they never quit. They got this game. It was like a 20 or so point game with like 5 minutes to go, and they got it down to like 10 or something with like 2 minutes to go. So just an incredible effort, which, the Pacers have done all season, right? That's what they do. The remarkable comebacks they've had in these playoffs, right? And, this team, depending on how the Haliburton recovery goes, this team's not going away, right? They're gonna, I think they're gonna go into the luxury tax for the first time in a long time with this team. I think they're gonna bring back Miles Turner. They're gonna bring back some of their veteran guys. This team's not going away. This team is going to be a threat in the Eastern Conference for a while, right? OKC is, you know, I'm not gonna say they were lucky. The Pacers were to get this to Game 7 because some of the way they played OKC was just so smart. They're sort of the getting out in transition, the limiting the turnovers. The Pacers were one of the best teams, I would say, on paper that match up with the Thunder. We saw so because it went to 7 games despite the Thunder winning. Um, but I keep bringing this up, just giving as much credit. I know the Thunder win, but just as much credit as you can because you never really do know what would have happened had Tyrese Haliburton um, not suffered from just a brutal injury in the worst possible moment you could have. But I'll talk about now. Just I want to talk about Chet Holmgren, just how awesome he was down the stretch in this game. The blocks. What do you have in this game? He had right the Thunder start double big. They go to single big down the stretch, and he 5 blocks. I think that's the most in a Game 7 all time. Uh, he was just incredible, right? 18 points for him as well, 8 rebounds. Some of the rebounds he was getting, giving the Thunder second chance points on any shots they missed. It was just a backbreaker for the Pacers, right? They would get a stop, and Chet Holmgren would just come flying in, easy rebound. Or the Pacers would shoot a shot, and they'd have no chance to get an offensive rebound, get another shot, and it's just one and done. So easy for the Thunder to then get out and run, and this game quickly became a blowout before the Pacers actually fought hard to bring it back. But you know, the Thunder, I probably am gonna have them favored next couple of years, assuming everyone stays healthy and this team doesn't break up. Which, I don't. Some of their role players, their deep role players, they're gonna have to go with the new salary cap and everything. But I do think the core is gonna be able to stick together. They can piece different pieces around to make a team. Right, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's only gonna get better. This was the year I think to beat them, and the Pacers come up short. So I think they're gonna win. We like to say, oh, the next year this team's gonna repeat. Right? We haven't seen this in 6 years. In fact, no team has made it out of the second round after winning a championship in the last 6 years. Um, and I don't know if we should expect anything different out of this team, but it just feels like this team has a little bit more going for them than some of these other teams did, my Celtics included. But you know, final thoughts on this game before we move on to Kevin Durant. Jalen Williams again coming up clutch at home. Right, we see sometimes he struggles on the road as very young role players and stars even to tend to do, but then just at home, um, he just makes all the plays, left-handed layups, getting to the rim, and then knocking down some huge threes late in the game. Him, Caruso, Chet Holmgren, the role players making their shots at home was the difference in this game. And so, yeah, once again, the Thunder win 103-91 in Game 7. Just a awesome series. I mean, overall, from the heroics of the Pacers in the early part of the series to the Thunder sort of, regaining control, what it felt like, and then just some absolute monster defensive performances for the Pacers against SGA in Game 6, in Game 3. Just some brilliant, brilliant defense from a team that is not known for their defense, or at least they shouldn't have been known for their defense. Now you could think of this team as a defensive team, and they'll be back. I'm saying I think they're going to be a top seed in the Eastern Conference next year. We'll see with this Haliburton injury, maybe not, but this team is not going anywhere. So just, I know the ratings might have been down, these two small market teams, but this was a hell of a series to watch. All right, time for the Kevin Durant trade here. So the Kevin Durant trade, right? They trade, or the Suns trade Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets, and they get back, I believe, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and then a couple, I think one first round pick and like 5 second round picks, something like that. And I actually think that's a pretty reasonable trade return, right? You get a young player in Jalen Green who has a lot of talent, and still has to be more consistent and develop. And then obviously you get Dylan Brooks, a veteran who is very good with on the margins and very good at some of the scrappy plays that you could use. And then obviously you get a couple picks. The first round pick, that's a pretty good pick that you'll use. Second round picks, they tend to be less valuable. Obviously, there are not as many good players that you're going to find in the second round. But still, I think the Suns did the right job. Right? You couldn't let KD decide where to go. I think you had to decide, um, you had to do the best offer for what makes for the best offer for the Suns, because you are in such a slump in terms of not slump, but in such a trap, more of with all the finances, and Bradley Beal not being able to get traded because of his no trade clause, and then obviously you know the value of Devin Booker. They didn't want to trade him, although I really think they probably should have thought about trading him, but he was a untradeable player for the Suns. So yeah, it would have been nice to get a couple more first round picks or so back, um, especially because second round picks are not that useful, and you know I don't know what you're gonna. I guess you can build around Jalen Green a little bit, but you still want a couple picks to you know get back under the salary cap and start to rebuild this team after just a failure in Phoenix for the Kevin Durant era. Um, Meanwhile, the Rockets, they're an, I would say, immediate contender, um, because you don't have to give away. Yes, you give away Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks, but you still have a lot of great defensive players, a lot of athletic players on that team. You still have Şengün, you still have Fred VanVleet, you still have Amen Thompson. So I think the Thunder or the Rockets are automatically a top team in the East after being a second seed team this year, right? And I don't know if they were a true second seed team. Obviously, their offensive flaws really hurt them against the Warriors in round one. But with Kevin Durant, you're gonna have a guy you could go to down in crunch time, right? He's gonna get you buckets and win you some games that way, and you'll have the defense to keep it close throughout most of the game until it becomes time for Kevin Durant. So I think this team is a automatic contender. I'm gonna put them second in the. I think they'll be a second seed in the West next year, only behind the Thunder, obviously. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow on social media. We'll probably do a live video this weekend covering the draft and who the Celtics or whatever draft. It'll probably be a part of the podcast. So make sure to check that out. You can watch the podcast on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, and until next time, go Celtics. And I'm sad to say, but once again, your Thunder are your 2025 NBA World Champions.